Welcome to this house of memory and celebration. It is Palm Sunday. You remember from the scriptures, there was a procession, a parade. And now when there was a conquering general or something, there'd be big horses and a lot of troops, and they'd bring out the palm leaves, and that was the sign of a victory. In this procession, the one we're familiar with, that we mark on this day, the leader, the conquering hero, was on a donkey. Well, a donkey is a very humble animal. This is used by the poorest of farmers. The statement is, this was no arrogant leader. This was a humble person, one of the people, an ordinary, like us. What's the lesson? Well, that victory, accomplishment, service, whatever it is we hope to do with the gift of life's energy, may be best served by humility. More on that as we go forward. We've got a little poem to start our day. This is by Lawrence Ferlin-Getty, and it is in the tradition of the Beat poets, open. It's a stream of consciousness, and this is the sort of imagination, the sort of creativity we're going to be talking about today. It's called Airplanes of the Heart. The little airplanes of the heart, with their brave little propellers, what can they do against the wind of darkness? Even as butterflies are beaten back by hurricanes, yet do not die, they lie in wait wherever they can hide and hang their fine wings folded. And when the killer wind dies, they flutter forth again into the new blown light, live as leaves. It's time for our meditation. You get comfortable in seats and relax your shoulders. Be aware that we're on the earth here. And I'll call Anne up to read something for you.
Just Thinking by William Stafford. Got up on a cool morning, leaned out a window. No cloud, no wind. Air that flowers held for a while. Some dove somewhere. Been on probation most of my life, and the rest of my life been condemned. So these moments count for a lot. Peace, you know. Let the bucket of memory down into the well. Bring it up. Cool, cool minutes. No one stirring, no plans. Just being there. This is what the whole thing is about.
Mythopoetics is a word used by J.R.R. Tolkien to represent the process of bringing myth into being, or any creative act into being. That subtle openness to unseen feelings, intuitions that the artist, the writer, the musician brings to us. In the ancient civilizations, there were gods and goddesses that were in charge of creative things. Athena, Minerva, Hephaestus. Hephaestus was the smithy god of the Greeks, injured, but able to produce amazingly beautiful things. Bridget was the protector of the artisans and artists in the Celtic imagination. She was also the protector of the springs. What's the connection? Well, the springs are something that comes from an unseen place that helps us and nourishes us, helps us live. The underlying patterns that the myth maker, the artist, the channeler is tapping on are equivalent to the underground stream that you find when you encounter a source of water, a spring. The underground creek reaches us through small portals. Tolkien fastened on this term mythopoeia, mythopoetics, in a conversation with C.S. Lewis, who thought all those old stories were nonsense. They weren't true, so they weren't important. Tolkien thought they were true in a way, and he wrote a long poem about it. They're getting at some kind of truth. Joseph Campbell thought they represented access to the wisdom of the ages, the accumulated experience and depth of humans in common, and that we could connect with each other if we paid attention to the images. It was, in Campbell's view, very important, the imagery. He thought studying the metaphor would open things up. The metaphor was the portal. Read the picture language, he said. That's where the information will be. Anne and I just came back from a conference. We were at National Association for Poetry Therapy in Portland, Oregon, a group that we've attended for decades, and we come back inspired. Well, we also have small jokes. There was, in general, in the conference, a deep resentment at financially successful poets. Both of them. I want to evoke one of our ancestors, Zora Neale Hurston. We had the wonderful story that she was a folklorist and a writer, a central figure in the Harlem Renaissance in the 1920s and 30s, a close friend and collaborator with Langston Hughes. A novelist, the first woman documentary filmmaker, a pioneering anthropologist and folklorist, and that story we heard was one of her, which she gathered. And she would write it down in dialect, which was very controversial, but she said that is how they spoke. She wanted to be an accurate ethnographer. And one of her areas of special interest was hoodoo and voodoo, especially the trance states that people would go in during these ceremonies. Fascinating stuff. Some of the first studies done in that field. Her own experiences as a child were from very vivid dreams. She felt in the dreams called to something, had no idea what. But the dreams troubled her a little. She said it's understanding these strange things. It's a blessing of this world that few people see visions and dream dreams. A strange thing to say because it's a gift. She knew it was a gift, but she also knew it was going to be a lot of work. So if you open yourself to creative interests, it's a mixed blessing. It will be a gift to you and to whoever benefits from what you produce, and it's also hard work and sometimes confusing. A couple of quotes from Zora Neale Hurston. This one I've had on the kitchen wall for about 30 years. Sometimes I feel discriminated against, but it does not make me angry. It merely astonishes me. How can any person deny themselves the pleasure of my company? It's beyond me. And another, I have the nerve to walk my own way, however hard, in my search for reality, rather than climb upon the rattling wagon of wishful illusions. Part of a poem called Passion by Zora Neale Hurston. When I look back on days already lived, I am content, for I have laughed with the dew of morn, the calm of night, with the dawn of youth and spring's bright days, midsummer's bloom and autumn's ripening glory, my youth rejoiced. And when winter bleak spread melancholy around, I still smiled on. Part of the source of creativity is nature. There's a lot of language about fairies and angels and demons, and it suggests that getting out in nature will help your creative process. Wordsworth in the Lake District, a beautiful part of England, would walk, and he would find he was writing metered, rhyming, old-style poetry, and it would go to the cadence of his walk, and if it was too bad weather, he would still walk in the garden, get rain, and I visited the house, and there's a bit of a trench along the back wall of his small English garden where he would pace back and forth while it came to him, then would go inside and write it down. His friend Coleridge took these long hikes by the lakes and the mountains and all, and you can see in the words they came up with that the landscape was helping, or the angels, or the fairies. Poetry is not only dream and vision, it is the skeleton architecture of our lives. It lays the foundations for a future of change, a bridge across our fears of what has never been before, from poet Audre Lorde. And one more, this from Robert Penn Warren. The poem is a little myth of our capacity of making life meaningful. And in the end, the poem is not a thing we see, it is rather a light by which we may see. And what we see is life. The creative process in any form has a profound effect on the one involved in the process. That is, doing art changes the artist. There's a kind of altered state you go into when the muses are with you. And that can be confusing or inspiring. It is usually described as a somewhat sacred realm. Sometimes the act of creativity helps you become your secret self. My own transformative experience happened in a workshop with a writing teacher named Natalie Goldberg. Facing the blank page, as a writer of articles and lectures and sermons and things, occasionally poems, the worst thing was thinking, well, what do I have to say? How do you do this? And she said, well, she came from a meditation background and had for many, many years been involved in very intense work. And in meditation, you try to let go of what's going on in your mind. You try to clear out a little bit, find some open space to relax and be with the universe. But she thought as a writer, all of that is material. Rather than just clearing it out, write it down. And she would tell the workshop, there's a lot going on, write it down. You think you have a blank page, you don't. You've got chatter, you've got monkey mind. And some of it is nonsense, some of it's, my back feels a little uncomfortable, write it down. Because you'll write some of that down for a few lines, and then you'll get to some better stuff, because lots going on all the time. And I got it. I had read her book, it's called Writing Down the Bones, it's a really good book, and I sort of got the idea, but it was in person when she explained in detail and then had us do it and then had us do it again, that I got it. Now, I'm not at a loss for words. I can sit down and start writing, something comes, and the first couple of lines are junk, but not always. And after that, it starts getting a little good, and then there's some trimming and editing later, but I don't fear it. In fact, the fear I have now is coming up with way too much. And I always struggle when we do this to try to trim it and have it stop in less than an hour. Okay. One of the side effects is I enjoy my own company. And I hike, and if we can connect and we can do it, and if we can't and I'm hiking by myself, I'm listening to my observations about the trees and the sky and the neighbors and the weird cars. Stuff's going on in here. I try to be selective who I share it with. It is not only not wanting to be seen as too awfully weird, but also there are diplomatic considerations. I don't want to hurt, I might look at somebody and say, oh my God, where'd that shirt come from? I don't say that. You know? Poetry serves as a liminal space where the conscious and unconscious meet. It speaks in the native language of the unconscious. Carl Jung wrote, artists are not people endowed with free will who seek their own ends, but those who allow art to realize its intention through them, who become vessels for the hidden wisdom to emerge. I will read one of my own poems that speaks to this listening in ancient terms. Now, we've talked a little bit about the muses, but there were the sirens, kind of the flip side, or maybe they were the muses on a bad day or something, but they were very dangerous. And yet, the sailors wanted to hear them. You know a little of this. And it was dangerous. There were rocks. The ships would crash and stuff. And so the great hero, Odysseus, came up with a scheme. I've got it in the poem. It's called The Singing. When venturing into realms of euphoria, there is danger of possession. One can be seized by the powers of that place. Travelers stronger than I have been lost in its swirls. Some of the best minds of many generations went willingly. The lure is so delicious, transcendent, rushing, wonder, delight, more than anything, better than good. Direct experience of the elixir, goal of philosophers' longings, the alchemist's labors. Be careful what you ask for. To give wisdom is a good thing, but the experience can destroy. Be glad you did not find this in your youth. You would not be here now. But be glad that you did find it. Many long and good lives have passed without such marvels. Be glad, but be steady. Much of you will die in this tempering, this burning away of dross. Lash yourself to the mast, but be sure to listen. To hear such singing and to live, that is worth everything. And we will hear from Anne.
I have a piece by Alison Luterman called "Because These Failures Are My Job." This morning, I failed to notice the pearl gray moment just before sunrise when everything lightens. Failed also to find birdsong under the grinding of garbage trucks. And later, walking through the woods, to stop thinking for even 5 consecutive steps. There was the failure to name the exact shade of blue overhead. Not sapphire, not azure, not delft. To savor the soft squelch of pine needles underfoot. Later, I found the fork raised halfway to my mouth while I was still chewing the last untasted bite, and so it went, until finally, wading into sleep's thick undertow, I felt myself drift from dream to dream, forever failing to comprehend where I am falling from or to, this blurred life with only moments caught in attention's loose sieve. Tiny pearls fished out of oblivion's sea, laid out here as offering or apology or thank you. Tiny pearls. Maybe we write to fish the tiny pearls out of oblivion's sea, to come to our senses, to come to those moments that we come to life, to reconnect to our inner world, to those small things that give life meaning and get lost in the busyness when we get disconnected. Wallace Stevens said, "I do not know which to prefer, the beauty of inflections or the beauty of innuendos, the blackbird singing or just after." When we write, we get to collect the just after that we need, what gives us meaning. And as Jonathan was saying, we're writing with all the images, the flow of images. But we write because we need to. We find a way to reconnect. And even reading others' writings, like Alison Luterman's, hearing it lets us reconnect also. So reading poetry and writing, the writer is writing for their own sorrows, but it enlarges others to hear their writing. As in times of difficulty like we are in, and we have been in, the pandemic, our strife, our current struggles, many writers pour out words because that's what we do, and we need them, we read them. Our poets become beloved. We have beloved poets like Mary Oliver and William Stafford, who wrote the piece I read for the meditation. People know their poems, they speak them, they memorize them. We need them. Another one that wrote during a difficult time was Anna Akhmatova, the Russian poet who wrote during the struggles in the Stalinist years. She was a poet before that, but she became a voice for many voiceless people. And she wrote a long piece about it called Requiem. In the beginning of that piece, she describes something of the process of writing for others. This first part is called Instead of a Preface. During the frightening years of Yezhov terror, I spent 17 months waiting in prison queues in Leningrad. One day, somehow, someone picked me out. On that occasion, there was a woman standing behind me, her lips blue with cold, who, of course, had never in her life heard my name. Jolted by the torpor characteristic of us all, she said in my ear, "Could one ever describe this?" And I answered, "I can." It was then that something like a smile slid across what had previously been just a face. And so in our own lives, we struggle for words during difficult times. After the election, some friends of mine had a text chain. They were talking about their feelings, and I couldn't find anything to say. I couldn't. And for a long time, I couldn't say anything. And so I started reading others' poems, and then the next day I was able to write about it, and this was what I wrote. I have no words. If I could be Langston Hughes or Anna Akhmatova, perhaps I could have words, but today words fail me. Emily Dickinson said, "I have a funeral in my brain." It feels like that, but the funeral is not only in me, it's in the leaves of the palms, in the maples turning red, the sycamore leaves dropping, the darkness up from the ground like an invisible fog. The cat videos do not help. NPR doesn't help. The clear blue sky like a funeral, the crows know it. They split the morning with their cries. I have no words. Anna Akhmatova could describe this. I fail at every turn. The sun is oblivious to the cares of this small world. The warmth will not penetrate. Others might find words. I sit in silence and read their words. So even giving some language when you feel you have no words can be healing, can reconnect us to meaning, can reconnect us to community when we read others' words, when we share our words. William Stafford, who wrote the first piece, he wrote every day. And it was a kind of healing for him, as you could hear in that poem, to get past some of his struggles to the sense of time and peace and beauty. And his son, who was the keynote speaker at the poetry therapy conference we were just at, has taken on that practice of writing every day. And he's been writing things that relate to what he observes and how he can make meaning, or how meaning flows when you just describe what you observe, which is something you don't have to be a poet to do, something we can all do. William Stafford said, "I don't write poems, I write things." We can all write things, small observations. And that's what Kim Stafford does, and he posts one on Facebook every day. And here's one that he wrote. It's called Wisps of Truth. When they dig to learn of ancient people, the story comes up from the pit in stone. Spear point, hand axe, scraper, drill, and blade. Rare is the rotted basket knit of root and vine, wood implement, snug cape sewn in fur. So we call these times the Stone Age. Here, in the War Age, it's the news that winnows for fact, telling us we are the era of greed and tyranny. When you dig for hard evidence, It's easy to miss the stories of affection, devotion, kindness, all the soft smudges between things. Does it go without saying then, this twinge one feels at dawn? So making beauty out of what is painful, even maybe that is some of the inspiration of writers throughout history, that we give language, we describe our experiences, and in doing it, something is restored. And we all have that capacity to move from victim to witness, to find beauty even in our pain, to create beauty and meaning and connection, to claim our stories and our identity. A piece I wrote that reflected on my early identity is something that we do as we go out through life. We need to reclaim, as we get older, all the people we've been. And so I wrote this recently. When I was 18, I believed in humanity's goodness. I believed in the hippies and Haight-Ashbury, in the long hairs in Golden Gate Park, in the music of the Youngbloods and the Grateful Dead. I believed in all of us together, loving our uniqueness, in the beauty in everyone. It wasn't hard to do. Come on, people, now, smile on your brother. Everybody get together. Try to love one another right now, Jesse Colin Young sang on a very green day in Golden Gate Park. It all seemed possible. We could all belong together, despite the war, despite our dysfunctional families, despite our parents not being able to do it. I thought I could hold that vision of golden light. I held it as long and hard as I could. And I still reach out for it when I write. And I want to close with a piece I wrote about, Jonathan mentioned nature, how we look around in nature and something in nature we can describe that connects us in a moment and becomes a metaphor. And this is a piece I wrote called Longing. A flock of crows, soaring black screams, cedar waxwings, delicate fluttering, twittering, red-tailed hawk, confident glide, piercing call, twin-engined plane, straight, noisy, bright-marked butterfly, silent, erratic, bumblebees, flickers, and fireflies, dragons, angels, and fairies, things that fly, defy my reality, escape the ground that binds me. I watch for wings so that I might believe more than I have known. I dream of brightly colored magical birds that land on my outstretched hands.
Action steps. Yes, I had some more jokes. You'll have to come to the sermon discussion. Time flies. Create a meditative reading ritual. Choose a poem, read it slowly, reverently, as if it were scripture. Maybe it is. Listen not just for meaning, but for presence. Let the poem speak to your spirit, not just your intellect. Maybe make a little ritual out of it. Light a candle. Breathe deeply. The second step, keep a soul anthology. Build a little personal collection of poems that stir your spirit, awaken your psyche, comfort your heart. Revisit them often. Let this become a companion on your journey. The third, consider a practice of regular poetic writing. Don't be too fussy about the form. Don't make it rhyme. Don't make it too tight. Get an image in there, maybe an emotion, something brief. This is your portal to the emergence of the mythopoetic perspective that comes from unseen dimensions. Be open to the dream world, whether that's the dreams that come in night or the kind of daydreams that come spontaneously. These are little samples, little whispers from another place. See if you can write a poem that gives voice to a part of yourself that you sometimes silence. Your fear, sadness, doubt, envy. It's not a confession. You don't have to read it to anybody else. But naming something gives you a little more agency, gives you a little freedom from it while not even asking it to go away. When you write, go where the energy goes. Whatever wants to happen right now, try not to push it too much. Follow it. This is the unconscious speaking. The fourth action step is try to observe the divine in the ordinary. Go for a walk. As Anne was suggesting, write a few lines about what you observe. Things you miss, the little crack in the sidewalk, a bird's shadow, a stranger's glance. Let poetry train you to see the sacred in the everyday. Carl Jung once said, your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. This kind of writing is not just producing something, it's healing. It's letting yourself be a seeker. It's being a mystic that looks deeply into your own psyche and returns with some truth we could all recognize. Namaste. Blessed be. And so it goes.